So if you're a student who's trying to become a physical therapist and you're starting to look into different schools, you're probably asking yourself, which is the right physical therapy school for me? Or maybe you're asking yourself, what do I even look for in a physical therapy program? Should I move out of state or should I stay next to my house? What's the class size? Is it 30, 40, 50, 100 students in the whole class? What are the requirements to get into physical therapy school? And really, the most important question, how much is this gonna cost me? So if you're asking yourself these questions, make sure you download the spreadsheet that I created for you so you can organize and have a breakdown of specific things that you need to look out for when applying to physical therapy school. You're welcome. But in this video, I'm gonna break down the 5 major things you should look out for when you are looking into a physical therapy school that is right for you. So make sure you watch this video all the way to the end so you can get that value. Lego. Hey everyone, what's going on? My name is Dr. Live for Change, Justin Lee, physical therapist. So if you haven't done so, please make sure you go to the link below and get that free resource, the free spreadsheet to look into the specific breakdowns on everything that's really important for applying to PT school. You're welcome. If you'd like that, please give this a video a like and return the favor. I really wanted to break down the 5 major things that you should look out for when you are applying and trying to choose a physical therapy school program. So the main things you should look out for are accreditation, cost, location, clinical rotation, and the NPTE pass rate. Now you'll see specific numbers next to those categories, and those numbers represent different scores, right? So those scores are what you're going to score the physical therapy school program, and you're gonna add all of that together for a total of 10. So when you have a greater score, like a 10 out of 10, that means that is a great program specifically for you. But if you have a lower score, like maybe like a 4 or 5 out of 10, maybe it should be more on the bottom of the list. Okay, so accreditation. Now this I scored from a 0 to 1. You get a score of 0 if the school is not accredited, and then you get a 1 if it is accredited. If it's still pending, I would still consider that a 0 because it's not for certain, but you really want to look out for schools that are accredited. Now, why is it so important that a school is accredited by the CAPTE? So when a school is accredited by the CAPTE, that means when you graduate, you are eligible to sit down for a licensing exam, which is important because you need a license to practice. Imagine going through a program that is not accredited. That means you cannot sit down for a licensing exam, meaning you went through all of that school for nothing because it's not accredited. So that's going to be really important. If it is pending, it is possible that it will get accredited, but it is also possible that it won't get accredited. So I personally always like to have that certainty, so make sure you look for programs that are accredited. It is also important that when a program is accredited, you have the potential, you have the ability to treat patients that are under the Medicare insurance, which is important, right? Because a lot of patients that you're going to see in the future have Medicare. So you want to make sure you have that ability to treat those patients. Okay, cost. Now I broke this down from 1 to 4. Remember, higher the number means it's more likely that you want to choose this program, meaning the cost is gonna be lower. So let's see what score number 1 is. Score number 1 is if the tuition costs at least $1,000 or $120,000 or more. It's a big chunk of money. This is probably going to be your private schools and whatnot. You get a score of 2 if it's somewhere between 80 to 120K, a score of 3 if it's somewhere between 60 to 80, and a score of 4 if it's somewhere between $30,000 to $60,000 a year. And typically this is your public school in-state tuition. Now, cost matters so much, and that's why this has the biggest score out of all the different categories, because cost is what you're going to pay after you graduate. You probably don't have 30, 60, 120K in your pocket right now to pay for school, meaning you're gonna have to take out loans for that. And guess what? Like, it's loans and you're not paying it back during school, but after you graduate, you're gonna have to pay back all of that loans, all of those loans that you borrowed. And think about it. Think about this, right? You go through the journey of PT school trying to become a physical therapist, knowing that you're gonna make all this money, and then once you're starting to work, all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm supposed to be making $70,000 roughly, but then a lot of that has to go to my loans that I took out. So that means instead of $70,000 that you're pocketing only, let's say, like $10,000 to $20,000 a year. Bro, you can't even do anything with that. So it's super important that cost is something that you factor in when you're looking into schools and choosing a physical therapy school program. I would highly, highly, highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to do so, apply to schools that have a lower tuition cost. I cannot stress that enough. You'll thank me when you have those loans and you're paying back those loans off later. So location is also going to be a big issue, and I rank this between 0 to 2. Okay, so let's go through the list. If you score this at a 0, that means you absolutely hate the location that this program is at. Let's say it's in the middle of Timbuktu and you're a person that likes to be in the city, right? You're gonna hate that location. You also, let's say you are in a place where you're commuting, or maybe you're in the school or you're in the state and you have to commute at least 30 miles to get there. And you also have to consider the weather. If it's terrible weather, it's inconsistent, it's always gloomy, always raining. I mean, for the most part, people like sunny places that are nice and happy, right? But if it's gloomy and rainy or cold or snowing all the time, and that's just not who you are, then for sure give that school a 0, okay? You get a 1 if you can tolerate those things. If you can tolerate the location, you have a drive between 10 to 30 miles of a commute, and you can tolerate the weather. If you're like, hey man, I don't mind the rain if I'm in Seattle or in Washington and I don't mind that it rains all the time, cool, I'm cool with that, okay? Then you get a score of 1. And then you get the highest score, which is a 2, if you love the location, if you love that you're in the urban areas or the rural areas, you have a commute of less than 10 miles, which is fantastic. You can get to school so quickly, and you have favorable weather. If you're like, hey man, I love the sun, I love that it's always nice and hot and I don't have to be bundled up in so many jackets, California is a great place to be in school, then you get a score of 2, baby. So all of this and location is super important because your wellness matters. You have to be happy at your location. Think about it. If you are just miserable in the place that you're at and you look out the window and you're like, oh, it's snowing again, I have to freaking plow my driveway before I leave. I hate that I have to commute 30 miles or more to go to my school, and I'm just absolutely detesting this environment that I'm at. Then that means you don't have the desire to go to school, meaning your motivation is at an all-time low. And let me tell you, when you're in PT school, you want to make sure that your motivation is at an all-time high, because you're going to need as much motivation as possible to get through and survive physical therapy school. Let me tell you a quick example. When I went to college as a freshman, I went to University of the Pacific in Stockton, California. Now Stockton, if you don't know, is pretty much like nothing. There's nothing there. It's kind of dangerous around the area, and only at the university is actually, it's a very pretty and a beautiful campus, but outside of there is like, damn, you can't really walk around at night. And when I was there, I was really miserable. The weather compared to Southern California was really hot or really cold, nothing in between, and I just didn't have a good time there. So I was unmotivated to go to class. I just wanted to sleep in. I just wanted to be in my bed and just stay in all the time. And my wellness was pfft. And so I said, you know what? I'm dropping out. I don't like this program. So I was a college dropout at that time. And looking back, I was actually happy that I made that decision because I just couldn't see myself thriving in a place that was not so thriving for me. Nothing bad on UOP, but hey, to each their own, huh? Okay, clinical rotations. This is really important. I'll get into that later on, but I scored this from a 0 to a 2, right? So 0 means you have no control over your clinical site, meaning the school is gonna pick the location for you, whether that's outpatient, inpatient, neuro, ortho, pediatrics, whatever it may be. You can try to put in some suggestions, but they're just gonna choose for you and that's it. And you have no control over where you're going. And who knows, maybe you're like, you wanna be at a sports PT clinic and you want to do orthopedics, but they give you pediatrics or they give you something that you absolutely don't like. And so think about you being motivated to become a physical therapist, and then they all of a sudden say, hey, look, you're gonna go to a pediatric place and you have to do this for 10 weeks, for 40 hours a week. And you're like, bro, I wanna work at a sports clinic. I wanna work with athletes. And you're stuck with kids. Like, how demotivating, how unmotivated would you be to go to that clinical site and to endure all those things? There are so many students that have a bad clinical experience because they weren't able to choose their site. So definitely look into that. Okay, you get a score of 1. If you have the ability for the PT program to choose for you, or if you can choose as well, or if you can give suggestions and the program actually honors those suggestions for you. Now, it's really cool because if you get to choose, you can also choose places that are in the state that you're at, but also out of the state that you're at. So that's something that you should consider. And then lastly, you get a score of 2 if you have full control over which clinical rotation site you want to go to. Now, this is a very unique opportunity because you can be in, let's say, Nevada and being in DPT school, but you're like, dude, I want to go to Wyoming or New York or Florida or California and travel to different places and still get a good clinical experience. And that's for sure possible. So make sure you research your school that you're interested in to see if you can choose your clinical rotation site. All right, lastly, the 5th category is the NPTE pass rate. Now, NPTE stands for National Physical Therapy Exam. This is the name of the exam that you have to take to get your license. So you want to be a part of a program that has a high passing rate, right? So if a school has, like, let's say 80% or 85% passing rate, that's pretty low. That means only 85% of all the students pass, right? And the rest fail. You don't want to be part of that 15%. Why even chance it? That means that program does not set their students up for success to be successful when they sit in for their licensing exam, which is ultimately the best thing that you can do, right? That's the whole goal of going through school, because you want to pass that exam. So we break it off at the 95% marker. So if it's a school that's less than 95% pass rate, you get a score of 0. If it's higher than 95%, then you get a score of 1. Now, lucky for you guys, I have it in the description below, but FSBPT has all the DPT schools in the United States, and it gives the passing rate as well. So make sure you check that out to see which schools have a 95% or greater. Now, when you look at all 5 of these categories, guys, right, you want to make sure that you add all of them up and see which programs are going to be most personable and best for you. I recommend having at least a 7 out of 10 or greater to actually be like, hey, this is a good program for me. If it's anything less than a 7, then I mean, maybe it's on like your backup list and it's kind of like, you know, but why even apply to those programs if you're just kind of like, for the program, right? Like I mentioned, your wellness matters. It's, you know, you're just trying to become a physical therapist. I get it. You know, you like, accept me into any school. That's fine, you know, and sometimes you have to settle for that depending on your prerequisites, your GPA, your GRE and whatnot. But if you have the opportunity to do so, you want to choose a program that really fits who you are as a unique person. Like, for example, I went to APU and I knew that that was a great program for me because I knew that it was accredited by the NPTE. It was an accredited program. Yeah, the cost was a little bit high, but the other parts was great for me, right? Location was awesome. My commute was less than 5 miles. My clinical rotations, I was able to choose my programs or have the PT program choose for me. Oftentimes the program said, hey, look, we have 2 different sites that you want to go to. Which one do you want to go to? I had that ability to choose if I wanted to have a commute that was more than 30 miles away or commute that was 5 miles away, right? So I had that luxury. And of course, they have a super high NPTE pass rate. So APU, Azusa Pacific University, was a great program for me. But that's for me, right? I mean, you're different, you're a unique person. So use this list, use this scoring sheet that I created for you, use the spreadsheet that I made for you. Like this video if you like that, and that way you can really figure out what is a good program for me. Alright you guys, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you got some tangible tips and a lot of value from this, I put a lot of effort in this video, please give this a like and share this with your friends so that the YouTube algorithm will continue to boost this video up and up. And if you have further questions, please make sure you comment below because I'm gonna answer it for sure. I answer to everyone's comment. Take the time to invest in this community so that I can be a supporter for you so that you can get into physical therapy school and just live your freaking best life. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay lifting, stay aloha. Have a great one, you guys.